Hi everyone, I am super excited to be here today talking about one of my favourite subjects. And I just want to start, before we kick off, by saying thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy day to tune in to listen. I really appreciate it. I'm Terry Handy, and together with my business partner, Shonlee Draper, we run PMX Site, an online platform where we are working hard to improve the quality of property management in every aspect, and that includes helping make the lives of property managers easier. Now, we do this through our membership, where we provide relevant, easy to understand training, and you don't even have to leave the office to have access to it. And we also have some pretty cool resources for some of those seemingly insurmountable problems that we can come up against in our industry. The other thing is we're also super blessed at PMX Site with a fantastic community of property managers and their leaders who, personally, I feel very thankful for every single day. Now, the team at MRI have asked me to share my thoughts today on how we can take the stress out of property management. And this is a biggie, isn't it? I imagine there are not too many of us who cannot say they haven't found working in property management stressful at some time or another. And the trouble with feeling like this, feeling under pressure, is that it doesn't just stay at work, but has a knock-on effect that often impacts our home life, like how we interact with our family, our sleep, how we take care of ourselves, how much alcohol we drink. And look, I know there are going to be many of you out there who believe that this is actually an impossible task, removing the stress from property management. Some of you might even be saying to yourself right now, yeah, right, pretty sure that's not going to happen for me. You have not seen my portfolio. And I absolutely agree that at times being a property manager can feel pretty thankless. But at other times, it can be incredibly rewarding. And that is probably why so many of us are still turning up day after day. Removing all the things that add pressure to us in our role as a property manager is actually not going to happen. I have to put that out there. And if I've disappointed you, I'm so sorry. It's actually important to understand quite a bit of the pressure we feel comes about simply because we're dealing with people. Bless their hearts. And there's always going to be something going on in their lives that seems to impact us. Then there are the things that are going to happen that we simply cannot control, which are going to create this added pressure for us. And COVID is a classic example, but on a smaller scale, it might be that you've had a nasty storm come through a suburb and it's caused severe hail damage to some of your properties, and then you have to find new homes for the tenants, and not to mention the insurance claims you have to do. Ugh. And all the while, you'll be dealing with the owner and the tenant's emotional state. It's pretty stressful. Or it could be as simple as Telstra is working on the towers in your area and no one can get onto the internet to pay their rent, including you. And so your arrears list blows out, and now you're spending more time than you normally would, that you don't have, on chasing up the outstanding rent. So these kinds of things happen all the time. And what about the interruptions? Mate, unless you have sat in the chair of a property manager, you cannot comprehend how many interruptions you have during the day. That owner you've been chasing for a decision for 3 days, they finally call back right when you sit down and you're about to get stuck into scheduling your inspections. Or what about the tenant who is panicking because they sent you an email less than an hour ago asking if they can get a kitten and they haven't heard back from you yet? So then they rang 3 times while you're on the phone to that owner who finally called back because they really, really need to know if it's okay, because it's the last kitten in the litter, and if they don't, they actually don't want to miss out. So you guys can relate to this, right? People are always going to have stuff going on in their lives that impacts us. Natural disasters are always going to happen. Changes in legislation are always going to occur. And, well, let's face it, the interruptions are never going to stop. It's the nature of the beast. So if we can't stop these things from happening, the question is, how can we take the stress out of property management? I believe there's always something we can do to change our situation, how we are feeling. But because I'm a little bit limited on time today, we can't go too far down that rabbit hole, the one of mindset and thought work. Instead, I thought I would introduce you to a concept I like to call breathing space. Now, don't worry, I am not going to start, ask you to start breathing through alternate nostrils or get all woohoo on you. Mind you, though, if you do want to explore that type of thing, I am all for it. When I'm talking about breathing space, what I mean is creating time for the unexpected in our day. And understanding that the life of a property manager can get pretty messy pretty quickly, so planning for it. And how do we do this? How do we create breathing space? How do we plan for something we don't even know is going to happen? Well, the first thing we need to do is to work to an ideal week. I know, probably not what you wanted to hear, but bear with me before your brain starts telling you all the reasons it won't work or hasn't worked for you in the past. Let's just frame that in a different way. Instead of an ideal week, let's say you are going to protect your time, or it might be take charge of your calendar. Maybe you prefer to say manage your schedule. Whatever sits easiest with you, it's up to you, whatever you want to call it, but understand this. To create breathing space to reduce our stress levels, we need to be in control of when and where we are spending our time. We need to be responsible for it. So having a structure to your calendar is going to make a dramatic difference to how you are feeling, okay? You will know what to expect. You can see in advance what your day, week, even month looks like. And to truly create breathing space, those little pockets of time you have to deal with the unexpected, you need to commit to a plan within your calendar. Sounds a bit too simple, right? But what happens is when you have a plan, you don't have to waste extra time thinking about stuff because you know what to do next. Think about when you plan your meals on a Sunday for the coming week. Like, life is so much easier. And the same applies to property management. When you have a plan, life is easier. So you naturally create space in your day and, more importantly, in your head. So I understand it takes time to plan, okay? And it can feel difficult to carve out the little bit of time you need to do this. But all you need is 30 minutes initially. Don't overthink it, and understand all you need to do is to get started. It doesn't have to be perfect. And by the way, I actually want you to create a plan for the next month, not just the next week. And because we should always be looking at least a month ahead in property management. Actually, if you name your plan the ideal month rather than ideal week, it somehow doesn't seem as restrictive for some reason. And coming up with a plan doesn't have to be difficult. Just write a list of all the tasks you need to complete in a day, week, and month, and then find a spot for them on your calendar. I suggest you actually do this on a spreadsheet first, and once you're satisfied it's doable, then transfer it to your electronic calendar and make it all pretty with colours and recurring appointments, all that kind of thing. And if you're already using a plan or an ideal month, that's fantastic news. What I want you to do is to take 30 minutes to review it. Compare what you actually did over the past month with what your plan originally looked like. Take a moment to reflect on all the times you felt a little out of control or overwhelmed, and look at what changes you can make to prevent this from happening again. So I cannot emphasize enough, once you have a plan in place, you will quickly be able to see what is working and what isn't. And then you just have to tweak it to improve it. Now, an example of a tweak is perhaps in your plan you thought it might be best to do your routine inspections on a Tuesday and a Thursday morning. But you realise you're always pushed for time on a Tuesday because your team meeting is first up and it often runs over time and the day just deteriorates as you go along. It's a nightmare. But it's easy to fix. Just shift things around. You know your team meeting is non-negotiable. The date and the time are not going to change. So look at perhaps doing your Tuesday inspections on another day, or even in the afternoon. The other thing you could do is perhaps look at how you could make the team meeting more effective, or you could allow yourself 90 minutes for the meeting in your calendar instead of an hour. Problem solved. The message here is you can always improve your situation. Creating a doable plan with breathing space for the unexpected is definitely achievable for everyone. Okay? Remember, we are taking charge of our calendar. We are responsible for our time. And to really take this idea of protecting our time and creating breathing space to the next level, I have a few tips for you. The first one is to always be looking ahead. When you know what is coming up, it is easier to anticipate issues or potential problems. If we are not looking ahead, then we will forever be stuck in this reactive mode, which is how things can quickly get out of hand and you feel like you'll never catch up. And this, my friends, is where stress likes to hang out. Like, stress feeds off overwhelm. The second tip is to control the controllable. And I know I've been talking about things that are out of our control, but believe me when I say there are plenty of things we can control in property management. Okay? And then the third one is maximizing the technology you're using. We all have access to it. Automating what you can, where you can, and I'm not just talking about your ears here, guys. So let's take a closer look at each of these points. So the looking ahead piece, like, it sounds pretty straightforward, doesn't it? And there are aspects of our role where we are already doing this. Rent increases, routine inspections, moving a tenant along. Like, we are actually very used to the concept of looking ahead. Where things come undone, though, is when we are not looking ahead far enough. And we're not being proactive about what we can do to help our future selves. So think about what I can do now to make my life easier in 3, 6, 12 weeks' time. What will future Terry thank me for? And an easy example of this is the lease renewal process. It's often one of those tasks that gets pushed to the bottom of the pile when we're under pressure. But for me, it's one of the most crucial things we do, not only from the client's point of view, but for our own mental health. We know that if we don't have tenants on a fixed term lease, we've lost a little bit of control over the situation. We're not able to predict exactly when a tenant is going to move out if they're on a periodic tenancy, which means neither we nor the owner is able to plan for what's going to happen. And of course, tenants always want to move out at the most inconvenient time possible. It's like Murphy's Law. How many of you had to do final inspections on Christmas Eve or had tenants hand back keys on New Year's Day? Like, it drives us crazy. And look, I understand not every owner or tenant will want to sign a fixed term lease, but if we could have the majority of our tenants in our portfolio, say 95%, then we are less likely to be hit with a heap of tenants vacating at the same time. Or if we are, then we're able to plan for it because we're looking ahead. Imagine if you could comfortably look at your list, your vacating list, 3 months in advance and know what final inspections you have coming up. Now, sure, there will be the odd exception, a lease break situation here or there, but overall, you'll be able to plan well in advance, and that is going to allow you to create some space in your calendar for the unexpected. The second tip I mentioned is creating more breathing space. Well, to create more breathing space is to control the controllable. And because we know our time is going to be impacted by the unexpected, let's make sure all the things we know that are definitely need to happen, like they occur when they are supposed to. In fact, not just when they are supposed to, but in a way that our future self will thank us and also will enhance the experience for our clients. So what can we control? What do we know that happens with every tenancy, every new owner that comes on board, every time we say goodbye to a client? Like, when you are looking at it, we can actually predict so much of what we do. I like to break down the relationship we have with our clients and tradies into 3 sections. So how we welcome someone into our agency, what happens throughout the relationship, and how we say goodbye. So you'll often hear me talk about the warm welcome, anticipatory service, and the fond farewell. I'm generally referring to these as the 3 pillars of service when talking about creating an amazing client experience, but they also serve to enable us to manage our time more effectively. When you look at each of these areas of our relationship, so there's actually plenty that goes on that we can control or at least positively influence. And the leasing process, it forms part of our warm welcome, right? So we know 99 times out of 100, we have to advertise a property on the internet, show it to a prospective tenant or tenants, process applications, do a condition report, like you know the drill. We know that all of these steps have to happen. So we have the opportunity to control and influence, within reason, when these occur. So a simple thing that makes a world of difference to your time is actually to have your new tenancies commence on a Friday. And I know that this is not going to suit everyone, but if we could, again, get 90% of our tenants moving in on a Friday, believe me when I say your life is going to be so much easier. We know that most tenants like to move in over the weekend, so let's help them get a head start by collecting the keys on a Friday. The tenant's happy because they can get up early Saturdays and get stuck into their moving. The owner gets an extra day's rent, so they're happy. And we don't have to deal with someone who is antsy. Like if we get to the office on a Saturday morning and they're waiting to get the keys and they've got their mate double parked with their ute around the corner, like that's just a volatile situation. And we also get to deal with any issues that pop up during business hours, like not over the weekend when you're trying to relax. And this is a simple way to control the controllable and give yourself some breathing space. So, and the beauty of it is everybody benefits. The other thing to consider is how much can we automate when we know what is coming up? And that leads me to my third point, maximizing your technology. So if we're still looking at the leasing process, so you'll agree there is so much we can be doing here to create breathing space using technology. So we've got triggered text messages, electronic reference checking, digital leases, paperless condition reports. I mean, there's so much good stuff out there now. But this is where it stops for so many property managers. They actually don't realize all the time they can save, or that breathing space they can create, if only they were maximizing their technology further on into the relationship. Maintenance alone is a huge one. So guys, what I want you to do is actually get curious about the software you have at your fingertips. Start actively looking at ways to make your life easier. Those updates the guys from MRI send out each month, they don't just do it to make themselves feel good. They're sharing the improvements and efficiencies they've created for you. But if you are not in the habit of looking at ways to give yourself some breathing space, if you're practically hyperventilating all the time because you have no time, then you're going to miss these little nuggets of gold. As I'm sure you can guess, I could bang on about the ways to maximize your use of technology for hours, literally hours. But you don't have time for that, and neither do I today. So what I'm going to do is actually hand you over to the delightful Hayley Winter from the MRI support team, and she's going to take you through a few of the handy tips and tricks that you can use in Property Tree to create some breathing space. So thanks for listening, guys. Before I go, I just want you to remember what I said at the beginning of the session. You can always change how you are feeling. It's just a decision. So take care and remember to breathe.
I hope that you have just enjoyed Terry's segment. I know that I did. It was absolutely fantastic. Here's hoping that now I can help you with a few tips and tricks within Property Tree to take away a few of those day-to-day stresses that you may have. For anyone that has not met me, my name is Hayley Winter and I'm from the Property Tree support team, and I predominantly work on our chat line. One feature we're going to talk about today is groups and tags. Now this may be a function you're using already, or it's one you haven't looked at just yet. Groups and tags are fantastic. With this, it gives you the ability to add in a specific group and then a specific tag. Now these can then be added to each of your profiles to help with reporting and mail merge. Initially, it may be a little bit manual because you do need to add each tag to the profiles individually, but it will save you a world of time once it is in place. Groups and tags are found under configuration and groups and tags. With this, you first need to add in your group. Now your group can be something pretty general like your owner payments, or it could be a building name, or it could be property features. Once you have your group set, then you're able to add in your tag. So say for a property features group, for example. With this, you would have the ability to then add a tag, say for a pool or a chimney, something that you aren't able to add on to the property details on the property profile already. Once you have this set here, then you're able to go into your property profile onto your tag section to add this in. This is going to help if you ever need to do specific reporting or a mail merge on these types. With the groups and tags, it is also super handy because you can use this for your reporting functions and also mail merge. For the reporting side of things, say for example you have an owner who owns a few buildings and they just want their leases of their buildings only. At the moment it would be quite manual to try and get those because you aren't able to just pick specific tenants. Whereas if you had a tag set on each of the tenancy profiles, You would then be able to go to your trust and reports and into tenancy leases to select the tag. Now this is going to be super handy because it will save you a load of time and it will just bring up those specific tenants needed. Now for the mail merge side of it. If you ever need to send a letter out to just a specific group of tenants, say for an owner who has a whole building, when you do go into mail merge, in step 4, this gives you the ability to select a tenancy tag. This will allow you to just select that group needed, and then when you do click next, it's only going to bring up those tenants. Again, this is super handy because then you don't need to go through and filter out hundreds of tenants potentially to only have the 10 you may need. Groups and tags is fantastic if you aren't using it already. Another feature within Property Tree that you may not be aware of is the automatic lease expiry notifications. Now this is a feature that can be found under Configuration and Automated Communications. Click into your PM tab and just scroll down a little bit, and this will then show you the 2 sections for your tenant and owner lease expiry notifications. These do default to be off, but you can turn them on here, and you can also click into the template to add in any more information or edit what's already here. This does also let you change the days that it sends out on. Now this is likely already got a date filled in, maybe 120 or 90 days, but you can change these based on your state-by-state legislation or just your general office needs. Hopefully with the tips on groups and tags and automated communications, this has helped with a bit more information on features that you may not be using to the full extent just yet. For more information on Property Tree, you will notice on the right-hand side of your screen that there is a Need Help button. Click into this and you are going to be able to find a few different options. The first being Knowledge Base. This is filled with articles on Property Tree with step-by-step instructions on how to complete almost every item. If not, they'll be there soon. In here, type in groups and tags, for example, and this is going to bring up the article with step-by-step instructions on how to set up your tag and some information on how it works as well. If you go back to Need Help, you will also see the Use a Voice button. This is where you can go to add in any suggestions that you have on Property Tree features. Highly recommend adding suggestions in here as it is viewed by the product team. When you go back to Need Help, you will also see Training. Now, it is great to go in here because at the moment we do have free training sessions for Property Tree. If you head into here, it will show what sessions we have and the next time they are being run. If you are ever needing support for Property Tree, there are a few ways to contact us. The first is via email, which is support@propertytree.com. If you are also using the MRI portal, you can log into this to lodge your ticket as well. We do also have the chat feature, which of course I highly recommend because you will find me on there daily. To access this, you would just click the little bubble down the bottom left of your screen. Now, you may get asked questions by Rocky initially. He is a robot, but I promise you he is just going to grab a few details from you before putting you through to one of the support agents. Chat is a great way to get assistance when you do need. A little random fact is over the past 30 days, we have been able to resolve 6,600 chats. That is huge. About 4,100 of those were resolved on chat at the time. There is always going to be a portion that does need to be lodged to the queue as we can't resolve everything on chat, but we will absolutely try. If we can't, we will get all information from you and access to lodge for one of the phone agents to give you a call to assist further.